So we're going to discuss Cummins and the lawsuit, the settlement that they made with the federal government. So $1.6 billion they owe the government for using diesel emissions defeat devices. Basically, they load a program into the computer of every single truck that they make and are able to change the tuning when it's on the EPA's testing devices. Volkswagen did this years ago, obviously. That was a huge lawsuit. So evidently, it's somewhat common in the industry. It sure looks like, right? So with that being said, I mean, the question is, why do companies do this, for one? And for two, what does it really mean for the state of diesel vehicles? Let's not forget, Ram got hit by this with the V6 diesel as well. So what does it mean for the state of diesel vehicles? Well, it makes you wonder, as a consumer, it makes you wonder if for some reason they can't hit the emissions targets with their current technology. Not for nothing, but diesel engines have gotten more and more powerful over the last 10 years, 15 years, and the emission systems essentially haven't changed since 2013. I mean, they've obviously changed mechanical components, but the technique that they're using to obtain passing emissions results are the same, right? The particulate filter with the SCR system, the selective catalyst reduction system, and using the diesel exhaust fluid, right? Won't go into all the technical details, just catalytic converter in there, blah, blah. But point is, that technology hasn't really changed, yet the engine power levels have, and the packaging for all those systems are kind of the same, right? There's only so much room under the truck, and they're only ever going to be so big. Now, yes, they've made technological advances in the cleanliness of the actual burn, but you still got a 6.7 liter diesel engine cranking out 1,000 foot-pounds of torque and, 400-something horse. It's going to burn some fuel and make some soot. And it seems like they just can't make a truck that meets the emission systems or the emissions requirements and also passes their power and power specifications they want. So what does that mean for the industry, though? Well, I hate to say it, but it's a little bit scary in the sense that I would not be surprised if Ram is doing this, if Ford and Chevy aren't. I'd be very surprised if other brands of diesel engines, even off-road diesels that require emissions now. I'm sure a lot of people are doing this kind of thing. And it just goes to show you that the government may actually be implementing or has implemented testing that is just unobtainable for these companies to achieve. And we might actually start seeing what happened in the 1970s with gas cars, where power levels actually have to come back down so that manufacturers can meet the new emissions regulations that exist. And we actually did already see this to a degree with the I want to say like 2 years ago with the Mustang. The 5.0 lost like 5 horsepower because they had to detune it in order to meet the emissions requirements. Now, they since obviously have broken through that with things like the Dark Horse, it makes a bunch more power. But we're starting to see that precipice, I hate to say it, I think, where, Ford just came out with their 500 foot-pound, 1,200 foot-pound, 500 horsepower truck, right? And everybody's kind of creeping up to that 1,000 foot-pounds of torque number, or above it, right? And we've kind of stalled at that in the last 5 years or so. Everything's kind of started to settle down. The power wars, they haven't climbed quite as fast other than this new Ford. And I just can't help but wonder if we're seeing the beginning of the end of the horsepower wars in both the diesel segment and probably gas segments as well. And I do wonder if the world truly is going to go electric, are we going to start seeing diesel over electric solutions from major OEMs? Something like Edison Motors, that what they do, because they can't hit the emissions regs, right? If they can't hit the regulations on a diesel-only truck, maybe they're going to have to implement other technology in order to make a truck that's compliant and will actually pass, for the marketplace. So it's going to be interesting. I think the next 5 years are going to be interesting because there will be a lot of changes. There will be probably more companies getting caught for this type of thing. I think it was a strategic play on Cummins' part to take that settlement and not let them further investigate. Whether or not they would have found more things wrong, I don't know. Maybe Cummins didn't even do anything wrong, but they just know that they're playing this game of being right on the hairy edge of what's passable, and they don't want to expose, the fact that they are using cheat devices or will need to in the future to produce vehicles. But it's an interesting thing when you're really probably one of the largest, if not the largest, diesel engine manufacturer in the world, dare I say, at least the country, I would think, is having to, deal with stuff like this to make their product. There is a discontinuity between the government regulation, evidently, and what is physically possible to make. And how we resolve that is going to determine, I think, in the next 5 years, like what technologies are used. Because right now, full electric is not ready for the heavy duty towing application at all. It's frankly not ready for the light duty towing application, range wise anyway. As far as I know, there's not a single electric truck yet that can tow over 13,000 pounds, give or take. I think the Rivian and the Cybertruck are around there, 12, 13,000. So if you need to tow 30, 40,000 pounds and you want to use a truck to do it, you got to use diesel, whether that's a medium duty commercial vehicle, whether that's a pickup, that's what you're going to be using. So they're going to have to figure out the diesel engine situation emissions wise and or come up with an intermediate technology. And what does that mean for you and I as a consumer? Well, this is not what anybody wants to hear, but generally speaking, these types of regulations or any new regulation or a company trying to have to meet a regulation adds costs, right? A diesel engine option back in 2007 or older, when there was no emissions requirements, or at least no post-treatment, after-treatment requirements, it was a $5,000 engine option, maybe a little bit more, right? Now a diesel engine is $15,000, and some of that's inflation, but not all of it, right? There's just a lot more components that come into play when you're creating a diesel engine now. The engine itself is a lot more complicated. All the emission systems cost money. So, meanwhile, the gas engine in the HD segment has really not become much more complicated. Only until recently have they even implemented direct injection, and all the major brands have a pushrod V8 engine for their HD truck engine. They're all relatively old architecture in the big scheme of things, right? Chevy just went to the direct injection, variable valve timing, but before that, it was the same Vortex 6-liter, more or less, that had been in the truck since 1999. So, 2000 on the HDs. So it's interesting. There's becoming a growing divide between the diesel and gas. And then, like I said, I think the gas will start to have some of the same issues down the road as well. So, yeah, I don't want to paint a grim picture, but I do think we're entering a 1970s-esque period of time when it comes to the great horsepower truck wars of the 2010s and 2020s, and probably similar with gas as well. And we'll see how electric comes into play. I think a lot of people are not believers in electric. I'd be honest with you, I'm not sure that I am either at this point, just as far as some of the logistic issues of really charging electric cars in mass scale, getting charging stations that are pull-throughs for towing trailers and the range required. Obviously that infrastructure is not here yet, and can it convert fast enough? Maybe, maybe not. But I do know, also I feel as though diesel engines are dying out to a degree, and gas. We're starting to see a break in the general trend of what has kind of historically just been accepted practice, right? So, with all that being said, as always, thanks for watching. God bless America, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.